Thank you for tuning in. My name is Ren Wadsworth, and I'm joined today by Dykson and Mary Gebretsadik as they talk about their campaign for the 2021-2022 Associated Students of Colorado State University President and Vice President. Now, let's kick it off by talking to them a little bit about themselves.
Yeah, so I can start. My name is Dixon. My pronouns are him and his, and I'm a second-year political science student. I'm also studying Spanish and natural resource economics, and I'm passionate about creating an environment of love and respect and dignity, and I recognize that we need to work towards that culture. We have to foster that culture, right? And I envision an environment where people, regardless of status or title, can feel valued, loved, and appreciated. And so in every way possible, I want to create that environment. That's a little bit about myself. I love mountain biking. I love running. I love playing guitar. I've got a corgi named Cody. I love Cody. I love storytelling, right? I think stories are powerful. I think they move elected officials and leaders. And so I try and emphasize every way I can use my platform to share the stories of others. That's my goal in life, I'd say.
Yeah, and my name is Mary Gebretsadik. I'm a third year. Can I do that one more time? Okay. My name is Mary Gebretsadik. I'm a third year studying political science and ethnic studies. And like Christian said, we're just striving for the most inclusive, most welcoming environment here at CSU.
Let's talk about your history with ASCSU. How long have you two been in it?
Yeah, so together we have over just about 5 years of experience in ASCSU. And it's important to recognize that we don't intend to maintain the systems that are currently in place, right? Like, we recognize that our experience in ASCSU has given us the foundation to know where to start on the change making, right? Because if we have goals for our campus, we have to have goals for our student government. And unless we know intimately the inner workings of the system, those goals can't be actualized. And that's something that Mary and I recognize, that our experience allows us to actualize those goals in a way that we think other folks maybe can't, right? With our experience and our vision fused together, that is the movement that we're building.
Yeah, and all of that to just say that we know the ins and outs of ASCSU. We know the system, we know how it works. I first served as an associate senator and on the elections committee, then became a senator for about 2 years, and now I serve as a director of diversity and inclusion. And Christian can speak for himself. He's the current speaker of the Senate. That's
right, yeah, 50th speaker of the ASCSU Senate, and I see that role as being the person who fights for all voices being welcomed within the space, right? Because we recognize that I think creating a welcoming environment, that's the alternative to the norm, right? The norm is often closed doors, closed meetings, right? But the norm that we want to create, the new culture that we want to create, and something I've been doing as Speaker of Senate, is create an environment where people can feel comfortable speaking and sharing their lived experience, knowing that we can't advance as an organization unless we have that.
So what are some of the goals or the overall vision of your campaign?
Yeah, so we have 3 core values that we're fighting for, and we believe in this adamantly, that core values must be the foundation. It must be the thing that motivates voters to vote, right? Because if you vote for a candidate based on their values, you know what policies they're going to fight for, right? Because those policies are an extension of those values. Policies and policy positions can change, right? Doorways can open, they can close, but if you vote for someone based on their values, you know what to expect, right? In other words, if a door closes on a policy, it's not like the movement is done and the people are gone. The people are still there, the movement is still there, the vision is still there, and it's because it's rooted in our foundation of 3 values: radical inclusion, transparency, and stewardship. And I'll let you talk a little bit about radical inclusion, if you want.
Yes, and all of that to say that our values will stay constant throughout our whole administration if given the opportunity. And so radical inclusion is one of our values, and what we mean by that is, of course, we want to incorporate all identities, and we want to bring in everybody from different cultures, different backgrounds, different ideas, and not just to bring them into, not just to give them a space, but for them to be validated in what they believe in, because diversity and inclusion is the backbone of a community. And so.
Right, and we want to think about it in a new way, like Mary said, right? It's going beyond just breaking down barriers. It is actively pursuing, it's proactively engaging, it's inviting people into the table and celebrating them for being there. And that's something that we know we can create. And as far as transparency, we recognize that we have, ASCSU has student fees, right? It has your student fees. And so what better way for us to be true to our commitment and our core values than to fight for that in every conversation that we have, right? Transparency means if an opportunity is not possible, we'll communicate it honestly, right? Transparency means if we have a certain amount of student fees, in this case, right, $1.3 million, that we will clarify where every single dollar goes. And one of the ideas that we're fighting for is like a New York Stock Exchange style board that we can put on our website that shows every time a dollar is spent, right? Or let's say I spend $40 on food for me and some of my colleagues in ASCSU, that would show up, right? Or if we spend $100 on the folks who are going down to Denver, our lobbyists, that would show up, right? Or if we spend $2,000 right on a conference, like those things show up and you can see that and you can call us out on that. That is the sort of transparency that we want to create, and we know that it doesn't just happen. It has to be instituted by leadership. That's something we will fight for. And then our third value
is stewardship. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, and I can piggyback on.
Yeah. Stewardship is, I mean, we recognize it's twofold, right? It's both environmental and it's financial. Right, and the foundation of stewardship is recognizing that there is something that needs to be stewarded. Right? It means not misplacing funds, right? It means recognizing that the lands that we are on today were the traditional and ancestral homelands, right? Of the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Ute nations and peoples. We recognize our land grant mission, we recognize our foundation, and everything that stems from that will be a reflection of our commitment, right? To the indigenous community on our campus, right? To the fact that what has been given must be stewarded because it has not been earned. It is something that we hold and we must cherish. And we recognize that.
Yeah. I mean, the land acknowledgement is an example, but that's just a start. And we want to continue doing more to actively engage and help not just the indigenous community, but all communities here at CSU.
In your opinion, what do you bring to the table that other candidates maybe don't?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one thing that comes to mind is the fact that Christian and I have close to 5 years of experience. We know how ASCSU works. We know the ins and outs. So if elected, we don't need to learn the ins and outs. We don't need to learn the logistics of how to make things happen. We will make things happen with that time given because we do know how everything works.
Right. And I'd like to challenge you. All right, I want you to go and visit the other pages for our candidates, right, the ones who are running against us. I want you to try and find someone else's story in their campaigns. And I'm pretty confident that you won't, and that is what distinguishes us, is we recognize that our story is the stories of all the people around us. The army of people who support and believe in this vision, those are the stories that we're showcasing, right? We are using our platform in order to open an opportunity for others to share their stories, for others to share their wisdom. We are pursuing lived experience in a way that we don't see in other campaigns. And we think that speaks authentically to our vision, right? We will meet you where you're at, we will share your story, and we will fight for you. And if we don't know you, and we don't know your story, we can't fight for you. So we see it not only as a mandate for leaders, we see it as a necessity for a successful campaign, a successful vision, and that's what we're going to fight for.
Alrighty, you touched on it a little bit in your core values, but what promises do you have towards students about their student fee expenditures that the ASCSU government makes?
Right. I think being candid here, the operation is too large. It's too large, right? There's too much money that has been bound up and tied up and locked up in contracts, and we recognize that, I guess it's twofold here. We need to find a way to cut back, to minimize, right? Recognizing that even a bare bones version of what we see as ASCSU right now can still be successful, right? Can still operate effectively and be honoring to the students who have given us the funds. So I would say first point is we only will utilize the funds if we know that the funds can be used in a way that will impact students.
Right.
Right.
And all of those steps of the process, we're going to be transparent in that, showing where each money is going, because those are student fees, right? And so we want to be transparent in where are your student fees going. A lot of the times people are not aware that ASCSU does use student fees to begin with, right? And so making sure that every penny that is used is shown to the student body and that they're aware of what's going on with their money is, I think, the first thing that we can promise.
Alrighty, and that actually was my last question, but was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about that we didn't touch on, maybe?
I think just recognizing that, first of all, our core slogan is lead with love and listen with heart. And it's both a description of the leadership that Mary and I want to carry forward, right? It's a call to action for the student body, right? Listening with heart, what does that mean? It means not listening to respond. It means listening to truly listen, to hear, to engage, to empower the person whom you are listening to. That's our call to action. And finally, we recognize that we don't have all the right solutions in every circumstance. We have many solutions that we think of that could be right, but until we have folks with lived experience in the room, we can't ensure that those solutions will be right. But what we will do is we'll ask the right questions.
Right.
We'll pursue lived experience, we'll pursue wisdom.
Right. We understand that we don't know everybody's experience. We don't all have the same identities. And that is why it's important to have everybody in the room with those different experiences to bring a shared value together, right? And all of our values ensure that we will make sure that everybody's heard, we will advocate, and we will listen.
Well, thank you both for joining us tonight. Make sure to tune into CTV as we continue to cover the Associated Students of Colorado State University in the 2020-2022 election.